people just project numbers and letters and symbols out of their eyeballs, but you've probably seen this effect before. It's going to be really fun to actually create it in Photoshop. I'm going to show you a great distortion technique called polar coordinates, which is going to wrap any shape you have into a circle. We're going to show you how to combine multiple different images together to create effects using different blending modes along the way. We're also going to show you how to make textures from scratch as well as add color and layer effects to give it that special glow. I can't wait. Let's go ahead and get into the episode. Cool. So here's the image we're starting with. We've got a beautiful picture of an eye, and this is exactly what we want. A nice close-up picture that's in high resolution. Now we're going to be creating some of our own textures to be putting on the side, the futuristic elements. And before I do, I want to create another document that has about the same size as this document. So I'm going to go ahead and test the size of this document. I'm not testing anything, I'm just going to look at it. So we're going to go to image and then down to image size. You can see my width is 6,000 pixels and my height is like 4,900. So 5,000 is right around in between. We're going to make a 5,000 by 5,000 pixel square document. Okay, so let's hit cancel there. I'm going to hit Controller Command N for new. This is going to create a new document, and I'm just going to type in 5,000 by 5,000. Okay, we've got pixels, everything else looks good. Let's hit OK there. Now, it's very important at this step that you actually do make a square. So whatever size you're going to wind up putting this into, whether it's 2,000 by 2,000, whatever it is, make sure it's a square. You're going to use the coordinates just a little bit, and that really works best when you have a square document. Alright, let's go ahead and look at what our polar coordinates actually do. Well, I'm going to create a new layer, and on this layer, we're just going to try creating a few different lines. In this case, I'm just going to grab my marquee tool. There we go. Make just a square there. I'm going to make another one over here. Make a nice thin one there. I'm holding down the Shift key, by the way, to add to these selections. There we go. And a really thin one there. So these are just selections at this point. We're going to go ahead and fill them with black. So I'm going to hit Shift Delete, which is going to bring up my fill dialog here. We're going to choose black as our color for the new layer. Okay, now we're deselecting, and this is it. We've just got this on its own layer. Now I want to make this look like it's wrapping around her eye. So we need these lines. They can't just be straight lines. They need to kind of wrap around with each other. That's where the polar coordinate comes in. So with the polar coordinates, what we're going to do, I'm going to go to Filter. We're going to go down to Distort and over to Polar Coordinates. There we go. Now if I zoom out, I'll be able to see a little preview of what I'm actually going to be making here in my final image. You have a couple different options. You have polar to rectangular, which is going to give you something like this, or rectangular to polar. In this case, we're going to be rectangular to polar. Now the reason there's a little bit of a gap there is because my lines here don't extend all the way to the edge of my document. In this case, I'm actually okay with that gap. I think it'll be kind of interesting in the actual image. So we're going to hit OK. There we go. And now you can see that's what we get. So it just turns straight lines into concentric circles. And it'll do this with any pattern you have. So that's one version. Now, in this next version, what we're going to do, we're going to take those same straight lines we had earlier, and I'm just going to move them. There we go. We're just going to rotate them around 90 degrees, and we're going to try this again. So Filter, Distort, Polar Coordinates. Alright, and there you can see we have a completely different effect. Let's hit OK and see what that does. We have a totally different effect. And this depends on whether your lines are vertical or horizontal. Very, very cool. So this is a great place to play around. Alright, speaking of playing around, we're going to keep going with it, because this is going to wind up making the grid, or whatever thing is going to be wind up coming out of our eye. We're going to make a new layer here. And with this layer, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I don't use this tool nearly enough. We're going to fill this with nothing. There we go. And I want the stroke to be black, and we'll take the stroke up to like 10 pixels. So when I click and drag, it's going to make a rectangle. Close that out. Because it doesn't let me close it. When I click and drag, it's going to make a rectangle, each of which is going to be, have a 10 pixel black stroke around it. So I'm going to make a bunch of those. So I think they look cool. I'm not sure, but I think they look cool. Alright, there we go. Now, we can see here on our layers, I've got a bunch of these rectangles, and I really don't need all these in separate layers. So I'm going to hold down Shift, click on all of those rectangles, and we're going to hit Controller Command E, which is going to merge them all together. Now we're going to just go ahead and rasterize that, because it was a smart option. So now this is what we have on this layer. It's like, okay, cool. That's what that looks like. Well, let's go ahead and see what it looks like when we run it through our filter. So let's go to filter, we're going to go to distort, and we're going to go to polar coordinates. And there we go. That looks a lot cooler, right? It looks totally Star Wars. And notice how these are all going on the very same point here. So if I wanted to size these things or take them around, you can see they all have the same center. All right, that looks cool, but you know what? I want another one. So we're going to create a new layer here. We're going to do this again. All right. This time, bring the stroke up. Here we go, about 20. All right. Same thing we did last time. Let's go ahead and shift all these merge together by taking and rasterize them, and then we'll go to filter, distort, and now, if I did want to rotate this around, I can definitely do that. Just press rotate this around. So we can put some of these on the top of the eye, some of them on the bottom of the eye. We can see we're already getting a really cool pattern here. Up until this point, we've used a bunch of patterns and random shapes and applied those onto the filter. Now I'm going to show you guys how to actually add textures to this document and apply those with the distortion filter as well. So we've got a couple textures. I already chose them, and we're going to go ahead and bring these in. I've got like a sound wave type looking thing, and then we've got this other just absolutely crazy, I don't know what that is, but it looks like sparkles and light. Let's go ahead and focus on this guy first. So if I click there, you can see I've got, it's in the same document as all of these so this layer, and these are from Tutolia.com, by the way. I had just like audio waves, sound waves, and stuff like that, and I got this stuff. So we're going to try filter, distort, down to polar coordinates. Alright, filter, distort, polar coordinates, and here we go. We can see what we're actually going to get. So let's hit OK. We can see now we get something like that, which actually looks kind of cool. So that can be in our integration of, whatever we decide to do. That can join all of our other effects as well. Alright, let's choose this layer here, and we're going to try the same thing. So filter, go to distort, and polar coordinates. Again, so we're basically doing the same thing over and over again. And we have the Eye of Sauron now. So you can see, anything that's linear is going to convert it into a radial, just like that. So we've got a lot of pieces now. It's time to go ahead and transfer these onto the image of the eye to make the effects. To transfer these effects, I'm going to take my original document here, and I'm going to hold down Shift, click on all of those different layers, and we're going to hit Command or Control G, grouping them together, and we're just going to click on there and just call this Eye Effects. There we go. Now we're going to use our Move tool and click and drag from one document over the other. Just lower the opacity to full 3 so I can see about where the center is. There we go. So we're going to bring our opacity back up to 1. Alright, so we have all the pieces in place, and now we're trying to change the blending mode in different directions in the image and make it look like eye effect. We're going to start with number 1 here, and right now we're touching black on the background, and I want to make it white. Very cool. Go ahead and take down to soft light. That's just going to go ahead and allow that to kind of blend in the image. Now, keep in mind, whenever you're doing this sort of effect, there's a lot of different options here. For instance, if I decide to hit Control Command J, I can now make this into this part, and all of a sudden I've got a larger version. Or I've got as well. So I don't have to do these effects every time I want to use them. I can just snap on top of each other. There we go. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. We're going to invert this in Control Command I. Like that. And let's put this as a soft light layer. And you know what? I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. So let's just bring and we can just turn that off and on. All right, and hit OK. And there you can see it gives it a little bit more of the like futuristic glow. You can turn this effect on or off if you want to. We're going to do the same thing with this one actually. I'm going to hit Control-Command-I on that. Now I'm going to copy the layer effect from this layer over to this one. To do so, really just hold Alt or Option and click and drag from one layer to another one right on the FX, and it's going to copy the layer effects from one layer to another one. There we go. Cool. So now we have on this layer, we have a copy of the layer effects as well. So if I just decided to duplicate this entire layer, maybe I just made this a little bit smaller. So I want to invert my layer first. So I'm going to hit Control-Command-I to invert it. And now, if I only want to see the lights, we're going to change this to a screen. So if I only want to see the lights, I'll just go to light. If you want to see the lights, screen. There we go. And now it's a screen. Now we have this light. I didn't write the science fiction movie that I'm making this on, but it looks pretty cool. Alright, and then we got this guy as well. We're going to change this from normal down to screen also. And you can see by default our color is a little bit, well, it's a yellow color, and if I want to change that, it's not a big deal. Just a controller can do it here, and I can click and drag to change it to like a really nice blue, like a teal. That looks really nice. Okay. There you can see we've got a lot of effects. Asking me I need to go around the edge because it's just too Alright, so we're going to this layer. So let's check on that before and the after with that glow. Lower the opacity a little bit.